Hey guys, today we're taking a look at the Hasbro Indiana Jones Adventure Series Raiders of the Lost Ark Introductory Wave. This is the first 6-inch line of action figures ever offered by Hasbro for Indiana Jones, and we've got a lot to talk about here. At $24.99 each, this is not a cheap line to collect to completion, so in this video, I hope to show you a better perspective on these toys so you can decide if this is a line that you're interested in collecting or not. I used to collect Marvel Legends and Star Wars Black Series, but stopped around 2019 so I could focus solely on Lego and ironically, Kenner Indiana Jones toys. Being a huge Indiana Jones fan though, this wave brought me back in. Although I was hesitant to collect a new line of toys, I decided to collect these after announcements made at Star Wars Celebration, so be sure to stay tuned for future releases from this series, because I'll be reviewing them all as they come out. Hasbro has shifted to windowless packaging, which means you can't see the figure you're buying, and that's a huge reason I didn't want to collect these figures right off the bat. While the box art is really nice, if I'm paying north of $20 for a figure, I want to be able to see it in person and not buy it on the blind faith that it'll look like the box art. Still, the box art for these figures is beautiful and does sort of make up for a lack of window that lets you see the figure, and while I'd prefer the window, if it has to be windowless, this art style is the way to do it. Once you open up the top, you slide out a cardboard tray that holds your action figure and the Build-An-Artifact pieces. Both come in these very cool stylized bags, which are a really nice addition. The first figure to talk about is Sallah, and I'm going in the order that I purchased these to kind of recapture my experience of hunting these down. The figure itself has some incredible detailing, and of course, posability at the shoulders, elbows, wrists, neck, hips, knees, and ankles. The lower body posability is prohibited by his plastic skirt piece, which is definitely accurate, but a bummer that it limits mobility. I don't want to repeat myself throughout the video, but I'll say it here. I really wish these figures who are wearing robes had cloth goods for their clothing instead of plastic. It'd make the posability options a lot wider, and for $25 each, I think it'd justify the price a little better to have cloth goods rather than hard plastic. I must say though, the face sculpt is so good on this figure. Having been away from Hasbro 6-inch figures for a number of years, it's great to come back and see they've put a lot of love into this wave, and Sallah is a shining example of that. His accessories are a shovel as well as a coiled up rope from Indy's descent into the ancient undergrounds of Cairo. Up next, we have Indy's sweetheart and an inspiration to young girls everywhere, Marion Ravenwood. Her outfit is from the Streets of Cairo action sequence, as made evident by her date-eating monkey accessory. The monkey is a very cool inclusion, with a surprising amount of posability at the neck, the front arms, and the tail. The only downside is you have to master the balancing act of getting him to rest on Marion's bent arm, which is a little tedious. Also, if your action figure shelf gets bumped even in the slightest, the monkey will definitely fall off her arm, so it might have been nice to have a peg or something to keep him in place, but I digress. For Marion, I am blown away with the face sculpt. From the contouring of Karen Allen's facial structure to the subtle freckles, this figure is amongst my favorites in the entire line. She has tons of posability at the neck, shoulders, elbows, wrists, hips, thighs, knees, and ankles. However, like many of the figures in this wave, she's a little difficult to get to stand on her own. Add in that factor with the difficulty of balancing the monkey on her arm, and you're left with a really nice figure that could have been perfect if for the balancing issues on two different fronts. To me, the entire value of the wave hinged on whether or not the Indiana Jones figure was a home run. But even in my hands, I'm honestly not sure how I feel about this figure. I certainly don't hate it, but I don't love it the way I loved the retro Kenner Indiana Jones figure the first time I laid eyes on it, so there's just something about this that's a little off. I love the weathered look given to Indy's jacket and hat, as well as the subtle paint applications here and there that help the figure look like he's got some mileage on him. Once again, the multitude of accessories is remarkable, and for the flagship character, I'm grateful Hasbro went to this length. As you can see, the hands are interchangeable, so you can put different accessories and different expressions of the hands, if you will, on the figure depending on how you want to display it. It's dang near impossible to get Indy's belt holsters to close, even if the gun or whip are not in their places. The loops and pins here just don't seem to close properly, which is a huge disappointment. Hey, maybe it's just my figure, but if anybody else has this issue, I'd love to know about it in the comments. One other point is the loose whip piece. It's molded in a position that doesn't really look good in any pose, unfortunately. The curves and the bend of the whip make it unnatural for just about any pose you'd want to do with it, so while it looks good in your hand, it doesn't translate into context well once Indy is holding it. The idle piece looks pretty good too, and of all the figures in the wave, I do think this one justifies the $25 price with all the accessories included. The Belloq figure is probably the most detailed of any in the wave. From the flashy designs to a great head sculpt, this is the one that I think translated into 6-inch scale exceptionally well. He has the same posability as Sallah and the same issue where the long skirt piece being molded in a hard plastic limits the posability that you can achieve with the figure, even though the articulation is technically possible. Unfortunately, beyond commenting on all the intricate paint detailing, there's not a ton I can say about this figure given that it only has a staff accessory and no changeable hand, although the ball joint on the wrist suggests it's something that Hasbro may have been considering at one point. And finally, we have Toht, which is the last figure I got to complete the set, and ironically, I think it's the best figure of the wave. First, we can go ahead and remove his trench coat, which is reminiscent of the Kenner figure from back in the day. Underneath that, you can see he's got the same range of posability as Marion had, although I think the Toht figure is easier to pose as the joints are not quite as tight as they are on Marion. I love the swappable right hand, which allows you to have the ungloved and burn hand, which can be placed on the ball joint. The only downside is the bare hand doesn't snap into place quite as tightly as the gloved hand does. Another downside on the hands is that the right hand is suited to hold the gun, meaning, sure, you could put it in the other hand, but the sculpting clearly shows it's meant for the right hand, and I think it might have been neat to have his burned hand on the right side and the gun equipable on the left side, but oh well, it's not that big of a deal. Where the figure really shines is the head. Not only does the face sculpt look exactly like the movie, but the removable hat makes me wish the same feature were available on the Indy figure too. If that isn't cool enough, you can also swap the head to show his melted face from the end of the film, which is as iconic as it is awesome. Finally, each figure from the wave comes with a Build-An-Artifact piece to complete the Ark of the Covenant, once you have all the pieces. As you can see, each figure comes with a few pieces that assemble the final build, and I'm very impressed with it and love the way it assembles. Given that it's all the same color, there's not a ton to talk about, so I'm just going to leave it at that, but I do think this was the perfect Build-A-Figure style inclusion, and I'm very thrilled with the final result. So there we have it. I like this wave a lot, and while I do have my critiques for each figure on their own, once they're all collected and assembled, I must say it's a great wave that has me looking forward to future releases down the line. It'll cost you $125 plus your local tax to get the whole set, so while I do think it's worth it, I think it'd be even more worth it if you can snag these at any kind of a discount. I'd have been thrilled to get all of these for $100 or less, so I think if you're patient, maybe they'll go on sale someday, and I think I'd be a lot less critical of them if I paid less, but either way, it was fun to collect, and I'm looking forward to more in the future. I wish you all fortune and glory, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest on Indiana Jones toys, figures, Lego, and more. Well, you made it to the end of the video. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and maybe check out one of my other videos listed here.